Good afternoon. How are you? Well, I'm just warming myself up today because Thomas Jefferson told me that it was going to be in the 50s, which it is, and that it would be windy. And right where I am now, I think I'm protected somewhat by the field and the trees, so it shouldn't interfere with your ability to hear me. And it's a gorgeous day. The leaves are beginning to fall, the colors are beginning to show, and this is the most brilliant time of year. It's just marvelous, particularly the maple that turned to such a brilliant orange. And I don't know if we'll see that on my walk, but that's what we have. So, what's going on? The reaction to the additional pleas out in Georgia, that is both Powell and Chesebro, have gotten a fair number of comments. And being a guy that can be critical with the best of them, I don't want to put down people that see all sorts of problems with the two pleas that they had. But there are a couple of factoids that I think we should straighten out. First of all, what is the objective of my lesson here? My objective is, they're saying that the pleas that Powell entered and Chesebro entered, oh, what are those charges about? What does that have to do with the bigger case? And some of the people saying it are prosecutors. Now, let's just suppose you've made the mistake of being an ally of Trump, agreed to do what he did, and you did both some very serious things and some things not so serious. And the prosecutor wants you to cooperate, and you say, I will, but you charge me with these felonies. I mean, the sentences are terrible and they're mandatory, and what can we do? Well, first of all, we could make it a misdemeanor. Why would you do that? Well, we'd only do that if you could give us a hypothetical statement of the facts that you could testify to that would make it worth our while. Now, if you lie to us, all signals are off. If you go back on your word to tell us everything you know, then you go back to the original case and we'll try you for everything. And you say, well, is there going to be any public pushback? Well, our concern is whoever comes forward first is going to cause others to come forward, and we are going to give consideration to the fact that you're coming forward at this stage of the game. Now, what we have is commentators saying things like, well, they only testify to this. What does that mean? They can testify afterwards to anything in the world that they actually know. The plea is a very different thing. That's the bargain. One of the criticisms of modern prosecutions is that the prosecutor can determine the entire case by its willingness to allow you to plead to lesser offenses and to take advantage of certain programs that in some cases mean no custody, and even to directly agree that you won't have to spend time in custody. The one rule, I suppose, and there are others, but the one rule is this person I'm talking to able to give me evidence against someone who has been more responsible and more dangerous in this case? Okay, now, we know that Powell had meetings with the president, that is, the then president, Trump. That's important. Now, Chesebro, we know, had meetings with Eastman and Rudy Giuliani. Those are substantial people in this case. So they allowed her to plead guilty to misdemeanors. But Chesebro had to plead guilty to a felony. Is that going to affect his bar license? Perhaps. Depends. The talk is, yeah, but you made this agreement with the state. You're not protected from the federal government prosecuting you. What is Special Counsel Smith going to do? Well, you make your choices, you take your lumps. Smith is not going to supersede that indictment in D.C. to include Chesebro or to include Powell. So you're not 100% safe from being prosecuted, but now, will you be called to testify? Well, there's a good chance you'll be called to testify. And then an agreement may be reached. And the agreement may just be that you be forthright, and we'll tell Georgia what you had to say and how you cooperated. Now, the commentators are saying, oh my God, he's got no protection from D.C. Well, he does. The facts of the case and the strategies that are different mean this is probably a good deal all around. Now, the lawyer for Chesebro said, I don't know why Trump would be upset about this. Well, good for him. I think he's playing to an audience of one, as some experts have commented, that is to Trump. But the truth is, what he's testifying to, Chesebro that is the overall game plan in conjunction with Eastman and Rudy Giuliani. That's important stuff. Now, did he meet with Trump? I don't know if he did or not, but you see, that is the problem with conspiracy charges. You don't have to have met with Trump. So, in truth, Trump and his lawyer are both smart enough to know that this is not such a great deal. So that's my primer on cooperation. I'm sure in the days ahead we'll have good reason to discuss other elements of it. Where do we stand with Israel? Well, Israel is continuing to attack from afar into Gaza. And the question is, are they going to go into Gaza? And the answer so far has been that we are making these attacks to better protect our forces when we go in, if we go in. Maybe it's still an open question. It does not help that there are skirmishes going on between Israel and Hezbollah in the northern part of Israel. So that's a factor. And the question is, will that ever boil over and be worse and more widely than anyone wants? The real danger, though, is if they decide to go in. This is a densely populated area. People don't wear signs on their forehead that they're safe or not. And the most similar terrible experience that Army and Marines had was in Iraq, in Fallujah, if you remember. And it was because they had to fight building to building, house to house, like those old World War II movies, except this was like, 2004, something like that. So this is what you have to keep in mind when you're talking about, well, it's two different kinds of approaches, military approaches, Gaza and the fight in the north. And you can't ignore the number of allies that will come and join Gaza should their situation become worse. It's plainly a three-dimensional chess game that is not easily deciphered or won. There's a very interesting story about our system of justice, and it is that there's a judge in Maryland who's handling a divorce case, and the father in the case was not given custody of the child. Apparently he couldn't handle it, and he shot and killed the judge. Now, in my lifetime, I've known of instances in which judges were shot and killed. And divorce cases are particularly terrible in terms of the emotional level of the participants, often around the custody of the children. And you may remember there was a much vaunted video of a lawyer, not a judge, standing behind a thin tree as a man in the divorce case tried to kill him And ultimately, as there was no real defense, and apparently the guy knew what he was doing in terms of his attack, he killed him. He killed the lawyer. So there are these grave problems, and they're made worse these days by the rhetoric of empty-headed politicians that think violence is a good way to take control and to establish the autocracy in place of our democracy. In terms of fun stories, I have a homework assignment for you. And there will be no report on it, and there'll be no grading. And it is to look at the stars tonight if you want to see a meteor shower. Obviously, if the skies are clear, that's one consideration. And this will go on for some time, and it'll be quite obvious if you're seeing the shower. Now, the question you may ask is, how the hell do I find this constellation that is in the middle of the shower? Because it's an Orion. It's an Orion shower. And somebody said it was Orion, like an Irish name. But it goes back further than that. And it's not an Irish name. The easiest way to find this constellation, approximately look toward the north, look toward the east, look high in the sky, and look for 3 stars, like they're the belt worn by in the Orion picture. And in the upper, you're looking at the upper left-hand corner. The upper left-hand corner is this brilliant pinkish star, which is Betelgeuse, which you probably know from the movie. And if you look at the lower down at the 3 stars that are the belt of Orion, you will see a series of lighter stars in the sky that form the shield of Orion. If you find that in the sky and you look at that and you're patient and the skies are not overcast, you'll see a meteor shower. And you may have seen them before, but it promises to be pretty effective. So that's what I got to talk about today. There are other things, but I think those are the high points. I'm spending my time doing a lot of writing these days. And don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining, I enjoy it. But some of the issues that I'm dealing with are challenging. And so I'm applying myself to it. The Jesuits would be proud of me, I think. You never know. You've probably heard me say the Jesuits teach you how to use your mind, and they're terrified when you do. It depends on the Jesuit. Some of them have the same traits that they taught us, and so they just love a good argument. So that's all I got to say. No trees here. Still on my limited walk because I had my operation. Feeling pretty good today. So talk to you soon. Bye-bye.